Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at a pretty big Wednesday night slate here tonight, Nate. In this one, we are looking at the Bulls hosting the Brooklyn Nets, who are kind of struggling right now. Bulls feeling pretty good, but we were going to take a look at some of the angles in this one for you. Nate's got his great article up on playpicks.com as well with some best bets and player props for you. And do like and subscribe to that page, as we got a couple other videos up for you today, including that player props video we love to bring you each and every weekday. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, big slate tonight. It actually closes with the Nets in Chicago. They are +2 at the moment. Late game out there in the Midwest, and the total has risen from 227 to 232 as those offensive juggernauts get set to meet 8 other games preceding it, beginning with the Hornets +5 at the Red Hot Sixers, total of 227 there. Intriguing betting angles to be had. The Magic are +6 at the Wizards. We're on a back-to-back. The Celtics -3 at the Pacers in a rematch there. Mavericks -2.5 at the Knicks. Very low-scoring affair expected there. The Heat getting back to full strength, +2.5 at Atlanta. The putrid Rockets are +6 at the Spurs. Cavs +6 at the Jazz. The Lakers are -3 at the Kings. That's our other game video for today. But we are talking about this Eastern Conference showdown tonight. Originally was liking the over before I even saw where it was set. If it was anywhere below 230, I was on it. But I think it's creeping too high. I think we actually have to consider who's going to win this game. More importantly than whether it's going to get to a 232 total. I know Chicago has the best offensive rating in their 9-1 stretch here. It's even better at home. They're shooting the lights out, but I think there's some strength of schedule to look at there. I mean, they have no real quality wins in terms of they're playing a shorthanded Pacers team twice, shorthanded Hawks. They have wins over Orlando, Detroit. It's just the dregs of the Eastern Conference, and I know they've also beaten the Nets twice this year, but out rebounded in the first one, dodging bullets in terms of the Nets missing a lot of threes, not getting to the line, not being aggressive. The Nets had a better assist to turnover ratio in most of those games, and it's really, I mean, if Kyrie Irving is playing tonight and James Harden is playing, I think the Nets would be favored if we knew that for sure. Both guys are questionable, so that's why we get a little bit of juice here on Brooklyn. But honestly, I think Kyrie will sit if his ankle's bothering him, and I think the Nets will still be able to win. I think you might even get better odds at that point with just KD and Harden running the show. They lost their last game in Portland, which actually kind of makes me feel even better about this, to say, we got to that this team has just been disinterested at times with the regular season, really since last year, disinterested, not willing to put their bodies on the line because they know they'll be in the playoffs and they know they can turn it on at that point. But I think this game certainly has their interest, right, against the Eastern Conference leaders who are on this hot streak. And Brooklyn is so much better on the road, especially on offense, that I think that's why you've seen this total rise so much. The numbers certainly indicate that they're much more likely to go over on the road. It indicates that the Bulls are more likely to go over on back-to-backs. They have in 5 of 7 back-to-backs this year. But the total is just too high for me to expect that. I would actually expect the Nets to play really good defense on this Bulls team. And you look at a total of 116.5 for Chicago. I would take the under there more than I would take the overall total, because I think Brooklyn can win this game getting about 120, but holding the Bulls in check to a degree. Perhaps Durant takes on the challenge with DeMar DeRozan, MVP matchup there. And Brooklyn just 14-4 on the road this year, somehow 11-10 at home, coming off a rare road loss in which they just seemed kind of morose, whatever the adjective is there. They had won 3 of their previous 4 road games, and I think that they will win this one in Chicago.
Yeah, there was a malaise, but yeah, I would say that this does indicate over. But you consider 232. I don't know. I mean, look, man, you mentioned Brooklyn scoring 120. I think if either of these teams scores 120, we're getting over 230. That's really how I feel. I don't see a blowout in this one. Harden's still questionable. You mentioned Kyrie is questionable. Their game time decisions. So is Nick Claxton. I think you get ahead of this spread a little bit early in favor of the Bulls, in my opinion. And I understand that, in their last 10, it's been a bit of a mirage in terms of, winning 10 of their last 11, not playing any good teams in that time span, to your point. But at the same time, they've been without guys in that time frame, and now they're completely healthy. And we know what they've been when they're completely healthy. I think we've established them as a top 5 offense in the league and at least a top 15 defense, enough to keep them, in game. So I'm kind of zagging on you a little bit just in terms of feeling the Bulls at home and what they've done in their last 10, specifically with the guys that have been playing. As we mentioned, they've been missing Lonzo and Caruso for those, and Lonzo's been back in their last 5, which has only increased their offensive rating, as you mentioned briefly. Their effective field goal percentage and true shooting percentage, both number 1 in the league in that time frame. And I think they've played some decent defenses and some teams that like to slow it down on them, and it still hasn't really worked. To be honest. So, you consider that, and you consider their different, you mentioned their home road splits where, at home, they're just incredible with, an 8.2 net rating versus 1.2 on the road. They're 4, points per 100 possessions better on offense, 3 better on defense, et cetera. They rebound better at home, and, they're 13-6 against the spread at home. And when they've been a dog, they're 2-1 when they're at home. But, I don't really even consider this game. This one feels a lot more like a pick'em, and the Nets haven't covered the spread. It's been the story all season. Even when they've been winning, they haven't covered the spread in 5 of their last 7. They've also lost those, 5 of those 7 straight up with, James Harden and KD playing in those, Kyrie playing in 2 of them. So, I do think their offense, is something that I don't think is going to necessarily be stopped tonight by any means. But at the same time, I this is one of those games, once again, I don't love to go the route of the teaser, but if you want to take an under 2, if you want to get it back down to get the over, I still like your logic at the top of the show of if this thing gets under 230, then I like the over, because I do think one of these teams scores 120 to win this game, especially, if Kyrie and James Harden are both playing. But, if you're, as far as the total, like I said, I would either tease it down to get under 230 and take the over there. Or, I would really more focus on the game line and actually feel better about Chicago, in my opinion, just because of, I think the matchup is better for them as well. If Nick Claxton doesn't play, there's really not going to be anybody to slow Vooch down, who, completely came out of nowhere in the second half yesterday to put up a really good game and kind of screw our player prop. But that's neither here nor there. More importantly, I do think he's somebody that's going to give them a lot of trouble as well. As you look at what he did in their last 2 games as well, obviously DeMar also was huge. They dropped, they're averaging 115 points against this team so far this season. And so I think a lot of that continues. And I would actually take the Bulls getting some points right now.
Okay, so debate response here. The Nets, that they are absolutely awful covering the spread, to your point, when they're favored. 3-16 as home favorites against the spread. When they are road dogs, the absolute antithesis of that, they are money. 4-1 against the spread, including 4 straight covers when they're underdogs. 3 of the 4 of those games have gone over. So I am willing to meet you in the middle and say, yes, we should get an over here. But I think the Bulls will go under their team total slightly, as that's the advantage that the Nets. So I'm saying sort of like a 120-114 prediction, which would get us over. I just think it's going to continue to rise when people look at the numbers with how good the Bulls have been offensively. Assume it's just going to continue. But they played such bad competition, and their one loss against Dallas, they only get 99 points. Yeah. Dallas plays much slower, but Brooklyn can turn it up when they have their guys active. I mean, when when Durant is leading that charge, and it's probably just as key to see if Claxton is playing, because of what that means for Vucevic out there. I mean, with LaMarcus Aldridge out, that's going to be key. I mean, these teams have gone under in 6 straight, which concerns me. Yeah. None of those getting to 220 even. But I think if Kyrie Irving's playing, the Nets can kind of erupt. And I just look at that trend when they're underdogs. They say, you know what, we're just going to come out and show everybody that we can outscore anybody when we need to. Show ourselves maybe, because that's going to have to be their mode in the playoffs, right? It's like we can coast through this regular season picking our spots, but in the playoffs, we have the 3 3 of the top 10 best offensive players in the world, and we can just outgun you. And this is, an Eastern Conference finals preview at this point. So I think that's what they're going to show. So I would think Nets team total over, along with, maybe the overall over if you can get it at a reasonable number.
Well, I'm going to assume that you're assuming Claxton, Harden, Irving playing some combination of 2 of those 3 in order to get those points for the Nets. So I think my main point is simply, that's very pivotal in terms of if those 3 guys are playing 2 of those 3 guys, just one of those 3 guys for the Nets in terms of those game time decisions, Harden, Irving, Nick Claxton. So you definitely want to stay on thelines.com, playpicks.com, anywhere you find your updates on those NBA lineups. This is going to be a day for, especially, this is going to be a game specifically where, you might wait pretty close until game time to get those bets in and see how you feel based on what those lineups are. Because I know, my betting angles definitely change based on whether or not Irving, Harden, especially those 2 and Claxton for the defense. So, like you said, that offensive rating jumps and that defensive rating jumps as well when Kyrie Irving is on the floor for the Nets. And that's pretty much the case for him on every team he's ever been on. So anyway, that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure you like and subscribe to that page. Got those couple other videos up for you today, including that player props video. And until we see you next, happy betting.